We're set to go.
Okay, good evening. The June 2025 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the City of Bowling Green is now in session. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Jeff Crawford.
Here.
Judy Broadwell.
Here it's Julie.
Julie. Jerry Anderson.
Here.
Rod Noble.
Here.
David Flieger. Absent. Jay Sockman is absent.
Very good. We have a quorum. I'd like to first welcome our two new members, Julie Broadwell and Jerry Anderson,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
the Zoning Board of Appeals. We look forward to working with you. First order of business is the approval of minutes from the May 2025 meeting that was, they were previously circulated. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
All right, moved by Mr. Crawford, seconded by Ms. Broadwell. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved as circulated. First of all, let me say that we understand that the concept of zoning and city government trying to tell you what you can and can't do with your property sometimes can be of concern. With that being said, please keep in mind that we are citizens of Bowling Green and we're generally nice people, and we're just here to hopefully help you do what you'd like to do with your project, with your property that brings you here tonight. Our zoning code was recently updated, and it provides a process where if a certain project does not strictly conform to the rules of the zoning code, that this board may grant a variance to allow you to do what you want to do. In order for your variance to be granted, it's up to you to show us that a couple of things. One, that you give us credible evidence to establish that strict enforcement of the code would cause you a particular difficulty. And you can do that through the application materials that you have provided already, and also through your testimony here tonight. As we proceed, I'll read the requests in the order that they're printed on the agenda. Then the city's planning director, if I remember to allow her to do so, will give us an overview of the situation in the applicable sections of the zoning code. You'll then be invited to present your case to state the practical difficulty that you would be caused if strict application of the zoning code were required. Others will be able to testify regarding your request, either in support or against. At that point, the public comment period for your hearing will be closed, and the board will discuss the case, and members may have questions for you. And towards the end, they may also be given the opportunity to express to you their reasoning for why they're viewing your case as they are. The board will then either approve your request, deny your request, approve it with conditions, or potentially table it if we feel we need additional information. Appeals to decisions by the board may be made to the Wood County Court of Common Pleas, and as such, this is a quasi-judicial hearing. And we do have a court reporter present who will take a verbatim record of the testimony this evening. And anyone who desires to offer testimony will be required to swear an oath to tell the truth in the matters for which they plan to testify. So that's basically how we'll proceed. As I said, please feel at ease, and as you do offer your testimony, bear in mind that finding a practical difficulty that we have to arrive at with what you have to offer to us. So with that, we'll move on to the next item of business, which is election of officers. Anybody have any?
Mr. Chairperson,
It's Mr. Crawford.
if, assuming that the current officers are willing to continue to serve, I would like to nominate the current slate to continue to serve as the officers of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
All right. It's my understanding that all three of us are willing to serve, so is there a second to?
I would second that.
All right, moved by Mr. Crawford, seconded by Mr. Anderson, that the current slate of officers be reelected. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Can we repeat those names for the record? We didn't really
Sure.
let the
Rod
public know.
Noble, Chairman, Tim Emmerich, Vice Chairman, and Jay Sockman, Secretary. Thanks, Heather. Okay, first case for this evening is Nicholas Bolus, hope I pronounced that right. 929 Sand Ridge Road has requested a variance to allow the construction of a 25-foot by 35-foot parking pad in the front yard, which would be in a location that does not conform to section 150.72 off-street parking. A parking pad is allowed in the side or rear yard. Heather, can you enlighten us on this?
Two
one?
things for the record that I think we missed. Mr. David Flieger is not here tonight, along with the other member already mentioned. In addition to that, I don't think you swore in the people that are going to speak.
I was going to do that as we get started.
Okay,
It will change.
because I need to be sworn in to give my testimony too.
Okay, well, let's go ahead. We can do that now then. I apologize. If you plan to or think that you might want to testify tonight in any of the cases that will be before us, would you please stand and raise your right hand? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, very good. Sorry about that. All right.
Okay, so I will review the zoning code. Article 4, generally applicable standards under section 150.72, off-street parking under A, location of off-street parking, 1, off-street parking as associated parking structures including garages, parking lots, parking pads, and vehicular access ways may not occur in a front yard. This request is to have a parking pad in the front yard, which essentially means in front of the house. That is considered the front yard by our zoning code. Here is figure 26 driveways. That's part of the zoning code that really helps visualize what the approved parking pads and driveways, where they can be located. So I included that for your review. Also, there is Article 7, which is called the glossary of terms at the back of our zoning code, where definitions tend to give a lot of additional information that I think is helpful. So in your packet, I gave you a copy of the definition of the parking pad: a ground level parking area of 1,200 square feet or less, not including the access driveway. A parking pad is considered a side parking pad if it is located in the side yard. A parking pad is considered a rear parking pad if it is located in a rear yard. Here's an aerial view of the property on Sand Ridge Road, highlighted in blue. Using pictometry, facing north here, you can see the rear of the home and the existing driveway. Here's the side of the home with north to the left. Here's looking at the front of the house with north there at the bottom of the screen. And then here's the other side of the home, so you can see the existing driveway. Here's a picture of the property. You can see they're undergoing quite a bit of renovation on the property. Again, the existing driveway that they wish to replace and add the parking pad to. More pictures of the driveway from Sand Ridge. And then here's angled to the west on Sand Ridge to see that, again, that parking area leading to the garage area. Here's a sketch that was part of your packet showing the size of 25 feet by 35 feet, and again in the front yard. There was another sketch that was included in the application packet, but I didn't put it on here because it really didn't accurately reflect the location of where they wish to put the parking pad. It was an older rendering that they thought helped show the property a little better with a little more detail. We did not receive any phone calls or letters from any neighboring properties. An advertisement was placed in the newspaper of general circulation as required. A site notice was placed at the site. The other notices required by the administrative code were posted in the proper time and location. A letter was mailed, first-class mail, to the tax mailing address of the owner and adjoining property owners. Therefore, all the procedure requirements for the hearing have been met.
Thank you. Mr. Bullis, if you would come to the podium, please state your name and address for the record.
Nicholas Bolus, 929 Sand Ridge Road.
Okay, and you affirm for me that you swore your oath to tell the truth?
Yes.
Very good. Tell us about your project and what you hope to accomplish there, and keep in mind that particular difficulty.
Well, as you can
practical
see, I've been
difficulty.
doing quite a bit of renovations to the home. We hope to have them all finalized by the end of 2025 here. The reason for the request is for additional parking and a turnaround area, which would allow us to then drive out onto the roadway opposed to back out onto the roadway. I don't know if any of the pictures we can see that there is a blind corner on Sand Ridge Road, approximately 200 to 250 feet from our driveway, where when my mom comes over to pick up the kids, she backs out, and it always seems like as they're driving away, there's a car right up behind her.
Is that toward the city or looking west? Which side are you talking about as a blind spot?
Towards the city.
Yep. Got it.
Yes. And as we know, this may right or wrong, most people aren't going 35 miles an hour down Sandridge Road. They come around that corner at a high rate of speed. Therefore, we're trying to back out, get going. I feel like we're in their way at that. So I do think that the turnaround would increase our safety, public safety, being able to drive out onto the roadway opposed to backing out onto the roadway. I understand additional parking is allowed next to the garage and in the side yard, but there's a hill next to the garage there. I live on Sandridge Road. It's on a hill there. It'd require a lot of excavation, a lot of masonry work to build it up, build a retaining wall so that we could get parking in next to the garage there. Also, to do that, we would have to remove a tree, and this also would not really allow for backing out, any area to back out so that we could then drive out onto the roadway. I spoke with Chase quite a bit trying to come up with a way that I didn't have to come here and ask for a variance, but we just really couldn't come up with anything that truly did make sense. The area where I am asking to put this parking pad is spacious. It does not fall within the right-of-way of the front yard. The neighboring house to the east does not sit back. It's not like it sits way back so that it would feel like this parking was obnoxiously out in the front, I feel. Also, in this area, there's no on-street parking, so it's not like there's additional parking that I'm just not taking advantage of and asking for a separate parking pad. Also, we understand that there are specific rules in Bowling Green, and that we are not located on the east side of town. We are on the west side of town, and this is a residential setting, and it's not a rental unit where we're trying to stick a parking lot out front of our house. We are a family of 5, and we're just trying to, when we're going to do this work in the driveway, planning going forward. You know, we have 3 drivers right now and plan to maybe someday having 5 drivers there at the house. That's why we're thinking about doing all of this. We've invested a lot into the property, and we do plan on staying in the property long term. But I think the biggest downfall or the biggest impediment for me would be it's just going to cost a ton of money to be able to get parking next to the garage, and it's also not going to really allow us to do the back out and drive onto the road. I guess that's my 2 biggest points that I want to make to the board.
Those are your 2 practical difficulties.
Yes, sir.
Anything else?
I do not believe so.
Any more questions from the board?
A couple. Nick, thank you, first of all, for bringing this here and doing it the right way.
Yeah.
Clarification, if I may. As I look at the hand-drawn sketch from you, this is going to be right out on Sandridge Road, out to the right-of-way, basically.
Yes.
Okay. The other drawing, is this from a contractor that showed a
that's-
future turnout and it was right up close to the garage? Is that now not going to exist?
Well, no, that isn't going to exist. I don't think his rendering was right.
Okay.
I put that this parking pad / turnaround will be 30 feet from the front of the garage. That would allow a car to be parked in front of the garage and be able to back out of that parking pad or turnaround. Because if I stick it up too close to the garage there, anybody that parks in front of the garage, you really can't maneuver the vehicle out to get it.
So this area that says by the Star New Drive Turnout Future, that is not going to exist. Because if that is going to exist and then we add this to
no.
it, now,
No.
now we are putting a parking lot in there.
No.
Okay, that's not gonna exist.
The total area to the side there will be 25 foot to the east and 35 foot to the south.
And as I observed your property, I thought, well, they have space to do this where they wouldn't have to come up here if they did it just to the garage. You've explained you have
Yeah, And me and Chase went round and round on that, trying to figure out how to not have to come here and ask for a variance.
yeah,
Because we didn't want to have, I didn't want to have to pay the money, come to the board, do all that. But we really couldn't come up with a good solution to be able to get over there and park and then back out
Got it.
and head out to the roadway.
Do we know why we have something in zoning that we don't want people to park in the front yards? The purpose behind it, is this largely just an aesthetic thing?
Yeah, that's a big part of what our community wanted when we updated our future land use plan and our community action plan, and then we translated it to our zoning code update.
To me, this would be an aesthetic issue, but we asked neighbors and we got no negative response from any of them. Is that a correct statement?
Correct. We had no phone calls or letters.
Yeah, and the right-of-way, center of road, is, I believe, 30 foot in that area. So from the white line, 20 feet towards my house, there will be green grass there.
Okay. Okay.
And the neighbor to the east, his house, it was built in 1951, about the same time mine was. I do not believe he has the 30-foot right-of-way and 25-foot offset before his house starts. So it kind of makes my parking pad not seem like it's out as close to the road as maybe one would be thinking from the pictures.
You
Does
have
that
three
make
drivers
sense?
on your way to 5? You have
Huh?
you
Yeah,
have
we
three
have three
drivers on your way to
drivers
5?
on our way to 5.
You have my prayers.
In another 5 years, we'll have 4, and then 18 months after that, we'll have a total of 5. And if Kenna ends up staying home, going to BGSU, then that's when we run into our problem of having 5 drivers at the house.
Gotcha. Thank you for your answers.
If you look at the picture up here, your pad's going to go roughly where that white truck
Where
is
the van
parked
is.
right now.
Yes, but the stretch of that van is approximately 20 feet, and I bet I'm 5 foot off
Yeah.
the road. So that pad would start basically at the back tire of that van and head that way,
Okay.
if that makes sense. And then the pad would end before we got to that little tree that's right there.
How many cars do you hope to park on that pad?
2.
Okay.
Yes, and I understand with the size of it that it's 35 foot wide, you're going to ask why. 2 cars, and then when my wife backs out of the garage, she can then back around those 2 cars. She still has an open spot to back in and then drive out onto the roadway. That's why I'm asking for a 35 by 25. A normal 2-car garage is about 25 by 25 where you park 2 cars. And so that's why I'm asking for that additional spot there, so that that spot always stays open for a visitor or anyone that would come as a turnaround spot.
Here's my concern, 2 things. One is, as was mentioned, when the zoning code was updated, it's my understanding that one of the priorities of the new code was to try to keep parking out of front yards. And that's one thing. You kind of made my second point, which is general development standards, parking spaces considered to be 180 square feet, not counting drives and aisles and that sort of thing. Even if you had 3 parking spaces, we're still, if my math is right, only at 540 square feet.
And you're saying that those spots are 20 by 10?
10 by 20, 10 by 20 or 19 by 20 or 10 by 18, rather.
And my only argument back to that would be is we still have a spacious area that would still, I believe, be aesthetically pleasing. And we all know when you go to Walmart in those small spots, you get out and you're constantly holding your car door or whatnot to be able to. I just thought if I'm building it, we might as well make it so that people can pull in, open up car doors, and get out of a vehicle without squeezing out of a vehicle. That's the only reason I really put it to that size.
How many square feet is the house, if I may ask?
Well, first floor, and we finished out the basement there. We're at
No,
about
the first floor,
1,100 square feet.
because your parking pad is 875 square feet you're asking for.
Yeah.
So it's a decent footprint for a ranch or a
Yep.
2-story home. Okay.
Yep.
You remember the 7 criteria that you saw in your application when you applied for the variance? The things that we need to look at in order to determine, based on your credible evidence, that you have
Okay.
a particular difficulty. A couple of those things are, is the variance substantial? And in my view, based on what I said, and I hear what you say, and about 18 by 10 or 20 by 19 not, I don't really go along with that. But, given that you may want the third spot so you can have a turnaround in case two cars are occupying the pad, I still think that is the variance substantial? To me, yes, it's substantial. And will it affect the essential character of the neighborhood is another one of those criteria. And again, to me, I hear what you say, but that much concrete in a front yard, when it's my understanding that the goal of the city is to try to keep parking out of front yards for aesthetics, those are my two issues. I'm not telling you right now how I'm going to vote. I haven't heard from everybody else or, others who may choose to testify, but that's where I'm kind of going with my thoughts on it.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Well, I tend to agree with you. We're definitely trying to discourage people from parking, but I think issues of safety deserve special consideration. But so, I think turning around is legitimate, or backing out into the road is legitimate safety concern. If there's a way to achieve both of these objectives, perhaps there's a compromise that could be laid out.
I could support a compromise of going down to 540 square feet rather than 875, I think, based on what your rationale is, Tim.
And 540 is how big?
180 times 3.
So,
That's up to you the dimensions of it.
all right, so,
25 by 20 gets you to 500, so a little bit over that.
so you're saying, you said 25 by 25?
25 by 20 gets you to 500. I'm just doing the math here. To the area, you said 540? Yeah, so it gives you a basic idea.
All right, so you're saying you could go along more with the 540 square feet, and
That's
we
my
could look
personal
at,
opinion.
okay.
When I look at that, I think, are we making a big aesthetic difference by chopping off 300 feet? He wants to park a couple cars, and there's a safety concern, which I agree with when I see that curve there. I feel like this is a very reasonable request. There are other driveways in the area that are non-compliant to our current zoning standards. I don't think it's going to make a difference in the aesthetics of the area, and I would support it as is.
I would tend to agree that I don't think this would be a catastrophic change to the neighborhood. I don't think it would really affect the character of the neighborhood very much.
Anything else, Mr. Bullis, right now?
Well, I mean, I'm open to compromise. It's not like I'm, but I drew it because that's ultimately how I did want it. But if we have to compromise, I mean, we have to compromise because, I mean, I do think it's very important to be able to drive out onto the roadway and also have this additional parking.
The safety factor to me is a big issue with young people, and they do kind of burn around that corner out
And
there.
it would be one thing too if
that
it was a
curve.
slower moving area and less traffic, but Sandridge is a lot of traffic
And
and
it moves.
pretty fast traffic.
And zero opportunity for on-street parking.
Right. Anyone from the lobby have a comment one way or the other on this case? All right, any final thoughts? Tim?
That to me, safety is the most important part of this issue.
Jerry?
I think aesthetics would be my big question. I love what you're doing with the house. I can't wait till we get to take a look at
Get
it.
it done, yeah.
You can invite us over. And if the neighbors weren't complaining about it, if I were the neighbor, I'd complain. I'm not the neighbor, and your neighbor didn't complain.
Yeah.
That says something to me.
Jeff?
I feel the same. Safety, lack of on-street parking.
Julie, not to put you under the gun, because.
No, it's okay. I still think it looks like a parking lot, so I would be voting no.
Okay.
All right. Anyone care to make a motion for the disposition of this case?
I would move that we approve the request as presented.
Is there a second?
I'm going to go ahead and second that so we can put it to a vote.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Jeff Crawford,
Yes.
Julie Broadwell,
No.
Jerry Anderson,
Yes.
Rod Noble,
No.
Tim Emmerich, yes.
Is that everybody? Sorry.
That's everyone.
All right. Your variance request has been approved as submitted.
Okay.
Now, please see the planning department and get your final
Okay.
paperwork.
Do
Okay,
you need anything else from me now, or am I free to go?
you're free to go.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Second request, Laura Trendler of McBride Dale Clarion on behalf of 711/Speedway has requested the following variances to allow new construction of 1650 East Wooster Street. First, to exceed the 60% maximum total lot coverage allowed in the Interstate Commerce District by 16%. 76% of the parcels would be covered by impervious surfaces. And second, to exceed the maximum outdoor lighting level by 5-foot candles under the proposed auto fuel canopy, which would allow the use of 43-foot candles maximum with an average of 35.86-foot candles to be used. And third, to allow the construction of 4 wall size signs. Sizes would be 1 sign at 45.86 square feet, 2 signs at 49.1 square feet, 1 sign at 61 square feet, and 1 canopy sign, 24.55 square feet, which would exceed the maximum number of 3 signs allowed per business by 4 signs, proposing 7 total signs. The existing legal nonconforming pylon signs are approximately 100 square feet and 200 square feet in size. And finally, to allow the total sum of all signs to exceed the 336 square foot maximum in the Interstate Commerce District by 214 square feet, proposing 550 total square feet of all signs. Deep breath.
So under Article 2, District and Zone Regulations of the Zoning Code, this property is zoned Interstate Commerce District IC, which is within Section 150.36. And the intent, the Interstate Commerce District intends for a mix of lodging, commercial, and retail establishments. The IC district standards are in Table 13, and that is where I've highlighted the lot coverage, and you'll see the maximum of 60% where that comes from for this zoning. Also under Article 2, District and Zone Regulations, Section 150.16, defining lot area and lot coverage. Under B, lot coverage is defined as the percentage of the total lot area that is covered by man-made surfaces such as principal structures, accessory structures over 100 square feet, such as patios, decks, garages, carports, and pools, and other surfaces such as driveways, sidewalks, parking lots, and areas of gravel, pavers, or pavement, but excluding service walks. It also is in the definitions, glossary of terms, Article 7, the same exact definition for lot coverage. And then we have outdoor lighting under Article 4, which is Section 150.81. And essentially, this is the new, one of the newer section of our zoning code that's also new for us to enforce, which is why we work closely with our electric division to review photometric plans for some of these commercial industrial projects and then get their feedback on these requests. So basically, this section is for outdoor lighting intensity to be limited to reduce nuisances to neighboring uses and protect the night sky from light pollution. Under Table 27, Outdoor Lighting Regulations, same Section 150.81, you'll see this table here where the first section is location or use, and this is for under canopies. So a fuel canopy would fall under that. You'll see the luminance is a maximum of 5-foot candles. And then there are additional standards listed 1 through 5 that I won't read through, but according to the applicant, the site plan will comply, the lighting will comply with all of those additional standards. So it's just exceeding the 5-foot candles maximum. And then under Article 4, Section 150.84 sign regulations table, again, this is zoned Interstate Commerce IC. So the sign regulations table actually lays out the sign types permitted. And in this case, the number of signs per business allowed is 3 maximum. And the total sign area allowed, which is all the signs added together, is a maximum of 336 square feet. And this is Table 28. I gave you a history of those variances because it's a, it's an older area of town where it's had a lot of variances over the years, be different fueling stations. Here's an aerial view of the property. So as mentioned in the memo that I will read here in a bit, formerly the BP gas station was to the east of the Speedway, and it was addressed as 1670 East Wooster. Speedway did purchase that property in parcel and actually consolidated both those parcels. And you'll kind of see that weird shape piece that goes along I-75 where BP used to have a pretty large pylon sign that was torn down. So I just want to give you a little background on that. Using pictometry, you'll see a rear view of the existing property along with, again, that adjacent parcel that used to have the BP gas station. Here is a side view of the property. You'll see that private Shannon Drive there that goes out onto Wooster. Here's a view of the front of the property from Wooster. And then the other side of the property. And here is the memo I gave you since we've been working for a long time with Speedway. And I wanted to give you that history because it ended up being also owned by 7-Eleven. So again, we've been working with them for a while. So I have wrote this memo for you for the history. It's the variance request for 1650 East Wooster Street, dated May 30th, 2025, to the Zoning Board of Appeals. The City of Bowling Green has been working with the property owner and their representatives, McBride Dale Clarion, since 2019 on the proposed construction of a new gas station to replace the existing Speedway at 1650 East Wooster Street. They purchased the adjacent BP gas station at 1670 East Wooster Street in 2020 to enlarge their building envelope. They later demolished the building in 2022 and combined the parcels, as you can see below. In preparation of the plans to rebuild the Speedway, a variance for signage was applied for and granted on August 12th of 2020. See Exhibit A for all prior variances approved for 1650 East Wooster for their proposed signage packages. After review of the traffic impact study and site plans required, the city issued the permit for the new construction on February 18th, 2021. On February 18th, 2020, I received an email from McBride Dale Clarion requesting an additional year extension for their approved zoning permit, which was granted per section 150.92. Permits are valid for 1 year, or under reasonable and legitimate conditions, the zoning inspector may extend it for a period of 1 year. It was noted since the acquisition of the company by 7-Eleven, new build, rebuild projects were placed on hold. On June 23rd, 2022, Speedway sent revised plans with minor modifications, which the city approved. Various emails were exchanged over several months with questions about the project, but the new construction did not move forward before the permit expired. In 2024, the project was reinitiated and a new traffic impact study was required to be submitted since East Wooster Street had been modified with a new roundabout and the installation of a median since the project was originally approved. Also, the site plan was changed reflecting new canopy and building orientation and locations, along with the addition of a Raise the Roost restaurant use inside the building. The city subsequently revised and approved the TIS. However, due to the changing building layout and different signage locations being requested, the city determined the signage variance that was granted in 2020 was not entirely the same signage being requested for the new site layout and building. For example, additional wall signage was being requested along with a slightly larger total aggregate of all the signage together. The two existing pylon signs are legal nonconforming. The pylon sign at the northwest corner of the site was approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals on March 2nd of 1994, and the pylon sign at the southern edge of the property has an approved zoning certificate that was issued on February 15th of 1977. Below is a screenshot of the proposed layout and rendering of the signage that was approved in 2020. I also gave you a copy there of the renderings that the ZBA had approved in 2020. Additionally, since the new zoning code was approved in June of 2023, the property was zoned IC Interstate Commerce, which has a maximum lot coverage requirement of 60%. Under the previous zoning code, the property was zoned B2 General Commercial, and there was not a maximum lot coverage. Additionally, outdoor lighting regulations were also not part of the prior zoning code. These are new regulations this project falls under with the new zoning code, so I understand this is a new type of variance for the board, which will not be used to seeing. I did reach out to the city's electric division for their expert opinion about the variance request. Regarding his opinion, I have a screenshot on the proposed outdoor lighting under the canopy, and the assistant electric superintendent believes the lighting would be similar to the existing Circle K gas stations in the city, which he believes would stay within their footprint. The city staff has already approved the access to the site as required by the City of Bowling Green access management policies and guidelines. By review of their traffic impact study, Speedway 7-Eleven have not yet applied for the zoning permit or submitted the complete site plan package for full city staff review, but I anticipate they will once the requested variances are approved. A permit was approved by the city on July 31st, 2024 for the fuel tanks to be replaced, which has been completed. Lastly, I wanted the board to be aware that 1670 East Wooster Street also had several sign variances over the years, but nothing to share that really pertained to the current signage request. So again, I gave you Exhibit A, which lists the prior variances. I mentioned August 12, 2020. That was approved. There was a variance of an addition. That was June 13th, 2007. March 8th, 1995, a variance was approved for construction of signs at the Speedway, which would exceed the number of signs. And then March 9th, 1994, there was a variance to allow the construction of a sign which would encroach 22 feet into 25-foot front yard setback and would exceed the square footage limits. On March 2nd of 1994, there was a variance to allow the construction of a 120 square foot sign, which would encroach 22 feet, require 25-foot front yard setback. And then a variance for an accessory building canopy, which will encroach 11.5 feet into the 37.5-foot front yard setback. And in September 8th of 1982, a variance to allow the construction of 9 additional signs at various locations on the property, limited to 3 signs per business, and that variance was actually denied. But then it was appealed, and a judge overturned the board's decision on that denial. And then lastly, there was a variance requested in June 15th of 1977 that was denied. So here are some pictures of the front of the property. Another picture, and obviously per their request, they would be demoing both the canopy and the existing gas station. The Speedway sign is one of the signs they wish to keep there on the property in this picture. Another view of the front where the sign is they wish to keep. This is looking from East Wooster Street towards the existing facility, and that back pylon sign, they also wish to keep that, which again, I already mentioned, both those signs are legal nonconforming. Another view from East Wooster. Here would be that additional parcel that they would build on as part of their property. Another view of that parcel and the pylon sign. There's also a site plan that was in your packet that I know is kind of hard to read. So if you have any questions, let the applicant know for sure. But one of the site plans did list the actual, the amount of impervious surfaces, the square footage, and then the total lot area to calculate that 76%. In addition to that, they pointed out that the existing site is legal nonconforming, having exceeding that lot coverage, and then at the end of this construction, actually would be less impervious surface than there is now. We also included the landscaping plan, just so you can get an idea that they will have the required landscaping for the project moving forward. And then I tried to cobble some different things together just to kind of give you a better idea of all the signage. So this is the proposed site plan. There's a proposed building here that would sort of look sideways in a way on Wooster, along with that fuel canopy, but then I screenshotted each sign. So there's the pylon that would remain. That's approximately 120 square feet. The back pylon, again, that's legal nonconforming. We labeled that sign H. That's about 200 square feet. Again, those two will remain. They would like to have a 24.55 square foot Speedway sign on the canopy, just the one sign facing East Wooster. Then they would have 2 Speedway signs and a Raise the Roost sign on basically the west side of the building and the east side of the building. And there are 2 fairly, we consider small, 4.9 square feet welcome signs at the entry doors, again, on the west and the east side, that we don't call them signs because they are so hard to see from the right of way. You have to be able to see a sign really from the street to be able to call that a sign, but we wanted you to see the full sign package that they're proposing. Then in the bottom corner, we gave you each sign label along with the square feet and added that up to get the total sign area proposed at 550 square feet. So here's more details that were in your packet of the actual Speedway signage. Again, the sign A and the various square feet of each one. The Raise the Roost sign, another Speedway sign. The welcome sign I mentioned, again, not part of this request, but just wanted to give you the full signage package. Here are the elevations or renderings that were included in your packet showing the signage. And then again, here's that pylon that would remain. the other pylon that would remain or high-rise sign. This would be the Speedway sign on the canopy. Or actually, yeah, there it is on the canopy. And then this is the lighting plan that was submitted, that was in your packet. And then we also had a type of lighting that will be mounted under the canopy as part of the package that was sent to you. We did not receive any letters or phone calls from any neighboring property owners. An advertisement was placed in the newspaper of general circulation as required. A site notice was placed at the site. The other notices required by the Administrative Code were posted in the proper time and location. A letter was mailed, first class mail, to the tax mailing address of the owner and adjoining property owners. Therefore, all the procedure requirements for the hearing have been met.
A couple of deep breaths. Joan can shake her fingers out.
Gee whiz.
Lots of information, complicated stuff, well presented, thank you. Is there a representative here from 7-Eleven Speedway? Please come up to the podium and give us your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Laura Trendler, and I am with McBride Dale Clarion here on behalf of 7-Eleven Speedway.
And an address, excuse me?
Address 5721 Dragon Way, Suite 300, Cincinnati, Ohio 45227.
Do you confirm that you swore your oath to tell the truth for us?
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
And I do have packets for you guys that will hopefully tell the story a little
Sure.
bit better.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
So,
Thanks, Laura. We saw a lot of this. Yes, okay.
Alrighty, so Heather did a great job of giving the overview and kind of history of the property, but I will delve into it a little bit more, but try to keep it brief. As mentioned, Speedway owns 1650 East Worcester Street, and they operate an existing Speedway facility on the west side of the property. They have a vacant portion of the property that was the former BP station that was demolished. And they previously applied for permits and were approved to redevelop the site in 2019, 2020. Speedway was then acquired by 7-Eleven, and that's why the project kind of went on hold. Now that the dust has kind of settled from the merger, 7-Eleven's in a position where they can redevelop the site and start the project in 2026. So that's why we're back here. The proposed project is fairly different from what was previously approved because the site layout and the building design has changed due to 7-Eleven's current prototype. So I guess, first of all, as an overview of the project, Speedway's proposing to raise all existing structures on the site and redevelop the property with a 4,800 square foot convenience store. That will be located on the former BP lot. And then the auto fuel canopy over 6 double-sided dispensers will be proposed in generally the same location as Speedway's current fuel canopy. A total of 3 driveways are proposed with this development, 2 along Worcester Street and 1 along Shannon Drive. The 2 on Worcester Street will function as right in, right out, and that 3rd driveway that was there for BP will be closed off and removed. So overall consolidation of driveways. Updated landscaping, lighting, and building wall signage is proposed with the project. And as Heather mentioned, the new development will result in a reduction of about 5,300 square feet of impervious surface area. So that leads me to our first request. We're requesting to exceed the maximum 60% impervious surface area on site by 16%. So we're proposing a total of 76% of impervious surface area. And this request stems from kind of the nature of the use. So our civil engineers have added green space and landscaping throughout the site as best as possible, and that's what you can see on the front page of this packet. It's the existing conditions versus the proposed landscape plan. Unfortunately, we're not hitting that 60% maximum because we do have to provide sufficient parking and maneuverability for fuel trucks dropping off fuel to the underground storage tanks. And a new sidewalk along Shannon Drive, I believe, is proposed. So while we are exceeding the 60%, we are bringing the site into closer conformance with the code because we're reducing the overall square footage of pavement or impervious surface area by 5,300 square feet. And do you want me to just go through each variance first and then do questions, or?
Frankly, what I'm hoping is we can deal with this all at one time rather than individually, so why don't you go through all of them?
Okay, I'll keep going then. And then our second variance request, and if you turn your packet to the next page, you'll see our lighting plan. We are requesting to exceed the allowable light levels under the fuel canopy. The code allows a maximum of 5-foot candles under canopies, and we are requesting an average of 36-foot candles under the canopy with a maximum of 43-foot candles in some places. So this is kind of the standard across the board for gas stations. Our request stems from safety concerns. So 7-Eleven's main concern here is that the extra light levels will allow the workers in the convenience store clear visibility to the gas pumps and vice versa. And especially customers that are women or elderly want to feel safe while they're making transactions at the fuel pumps. Even though we're exceeding the light levels, we are still meeting the maximum foot candle requirement at the property lines. So while you can tell that the canopy is bright, it's not going to cause a lot of light spill onto adjacent neighbors.
When you say candles, so
Foot
5-foot
candles?
candles, you mean, that just is the amount of light that it puts out?
That's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the level of lighting.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a lighting expert, but.
Good question.
And then I believe in the staff report, the electric division said that the Circle K was something similar or comparable.
Yes.
Our third request tonight, third and fourth requests are regarding the signage, so hopefully I can break this down and make it a little bit easier to understand. The last few pages of the packet are things in the sign package that I thought were pertinent. So, starting with the first signage request, we're requesting to exceed the maximum number of signs for one business. The code allows 3, we're proposing 7. 2 of those 7 signs are the existing interstate high-rise sign and the pylon sign on site. And then the other 5 are the 4 building wall signs and the fuel canopy sign. The reason why we need to exceed the signage is because the orientation of the building you can see is turned sideways so that the entrance faces the fuel canopy. And our biggest concern here is that Speedway wants to be able to identify the building on both sides and include the Raise the Roost sign, which identifies the Raise the Roost restaurant inside of the store. And then that way the building can be identified to potential customers driving east and west on Worcester Street. And when you look at the sign pack or the building elevations, you can tell that while it does seem like a lot of additional signs, when you really look at the building and the canopy, it appears pretty modest, in my opinion, with the scale of the building. And then our next sign variance request is to exceed the total allowable sign area for the site. So this goes hand in hand with the previous request. The code allows 336 square feet. We're proposing 550. 200 square feet out of that 550 number is the interstate highway sign. So that is a large chunk of the sign area that already exists. And then if you take away that 200 square feet, 350 is the remaining, which is closer to what the code calls for. And that includes the wall signs, canopy, pylon. So we do feel like with the history of both properties, the BP and the Speedway, we are doing an overall consolidation of the number of signs that previously existed. And hopefully that paired with our landscaping and the more modern building will altogether make the property a little bit more attractive and bring it into closer conformance with the code. So I think that covers the requests. I'm happy to take any questions.
Laura, thank you for being here and for the presentation. We all remember when the BP was operating and then when it wasn't, and what an eyesore you get off at Bowling Green off of I-75. And the first thing, well, you see Bob Evans, you see Frickers, and you see an empty. You guys took care of that. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Of potential concern, sometimes zoning codes make great sense when written and under the circumstances at the time. So small tweaks don't really run contrary to the spirit, the purpose of the code. They're understandable. I was taken aback a little bit by your requests are not close. But let's go through these a little bit because I think it makes some sense, but I want to bounce this off of you. For example, the square footage right now at 336, maximum allowed to 550. That's a 63.9% increase. More than doubling the number of allowable signs from 3 to 7. But I read somewhere in the packet we have 7 signs out there now.
I believe
Including-
so.
So there isn't really an increase in signs. It's an increase over what our code says. So we've bent the code already. And then if these drawings, and thank you for bringing these, and thank you, Heather, for giving us an advance look at these. If these are in perspective, those are not big signs for the size of the building.
No, they're really not. Like I said, when you look at the building elevations by themselves, it's really pretty modest looking, I think, for
And
a
I
gas
was-
station.
Then I was also the coverage, 60% maximum, which you want to take it to 76. Again, not close, but we have learned that actually right now we are at 76 or around that now. So my question had been, what are we going to do with all that extra water? We're already dealing with it, is my question. The one thing that's kind of kept me a little bit, and I don't know how foot candles work either, but going from 5-foot candles to 36, is that the number?
Yeah, it's an average of 36. It sounds like it would look like a spaceship landing.
And this
but
was my concern. You have a hotel right next door.
yes, with our previous experience with this, it sounds like a lot, and you can tell that the canopy is well lit, and that's what we want for our customer safety. But the light spill won't really go onto adjacent properties. We're still meeting that maximum foot candle requirement at the property
At the property
lines.
line. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you, Laura, for your answers.
Anyone else, questions? I guess I appreciate that Speedway in some forms have been working with the city for 6 years on this
Yeah.
project. And during that time, a couple things have happened that appear to have created some moving targets for you as the developers that are no way your fault. The roundabouts were constructed, great improvement to that East Wooster corridor and the entrance to our city for sure. But it required you to do some things that were a little bit above and beyond, I think. You extended the zoning permit to start with and then weren't able to get things together and the time ran out, so you actually came back and resubmitted, went to the expense of a new TIS that was eventually approved by the city. Our zoning code was updated a couple of years ago, and there were a couple of effects from that. First of all, as Jerry pointed out, and as Heather first pointed out, is that the old zoning code, you didn't have a requirement of maximum lot coverage, and now you've got 60%. And I'm sure that was a difficult thing for you to do, considering safety and trying to get the buildings on the site in a way that made sense, just from a development standards standpoint, but also to meet Speedway's development standards, or rather 7-Eleven's development standards. And you worked with the city to do that, and at the same time reduce that impervious surface square footage to a significant degree. And then also due to a zoning code update change, you had to comply with the outdoor lighting requirements. I'm no expert on outdoor lighting either, but I have some experience with these kinds of things, and I agree what's important is the spillage from the site. And even though there is a hotel there, you've addressed that, and the city's own experts have confirmed that that should not be an issue. As for the signage is always a problem, and probably every community you go into.
Yeah.
And for years, I'm talking back in the 1980s when I worked here, especially out there on East Wooster Street, that was a big concern. And the city did all kinds of things to try to, or looked at all kinds of things anyway, to try to deal with sign pollution. And I think, as Jerry said, I think if you look at the size of your signs and in proportion to the building faces that they'll be affixed to, it's quite tasteful. A lot of developers would have come in with a lot larger signs. And also given the fact that the highway sign is 200 square feet, that's really not an impact from the ground as you're traveling and looking at adjacent uses, businesses. I don't see that as a factor. And also the fact that, as I understand, the number of signs that is there now on the combined parcels now, it's not that it's necessarily legal as one parcel, but the two combined, at 7 signs, you're not asking to increase. So that's good. There were no objections from neighbors that I heard.
Correct.
Essentially, when I look at these things, and while legally it's not the case, but perceptually anyway, there are two businesses there. There's the fuel part, and then there's the restaurant part. So again, it's not legal, but conceptually in my mind, it makes little sense for me to look at some leniency with number of signs because you're basically, in my mind, dealing with two businesses. I've probably gone on long enough. I do definitely appreciate that you did not ask for any variances from the landscape requirements. That's a big thing.
Yeah, we're going to try to make it
So
as attractive
that's
as we
great.
can.
So anyway, all that said, I don't see much problem with this.
Thank you.
Let me just ask, so the two really tall signs, which I find so offensive when you go into communities and there's all these really tall signs, I agree. I think the ones on the building aren't that bad. And you want them on both sides because of people coming from different directions? Is that why you need them on both?
Yeah, that's correct. So that both traffic patterns can see that it's a Speedway and it's a Raise the Roost restaurant.
But you're not, there won't be a tall Raise a Roost sign, as I can tell. It's just the tall Speedway one. So they'd have to
That's-
get pretty close to see the
That's
Raise the Roost.
correct. I believe that we could switch out a panel on the pylon sign if we wanted to add a Raise the Roost somewhere. But that would be the only additional place we could do that legally.
Would you, the canopy that's there right now, would that exceed, as is, exceed the 5-foot candle limit? I don't even know if I'm saying that right.
I believe so. I haven't driven by at night, but
it's-
I assume so.
And that candle limit is pretty standard, what you're doing for businesses like this.
Yeah, that's pretty standard for what I see across the board.
I love the fact that they're greening the property by 5,000 square feet.
And I'm sorry, just let me ask again. So we have the Speedway signs over near the fuel center. Why do we have the Speedway signs on the Raise a Roost restaurant?
So it's the convenience store and Raise the Roost restaurant are in one building.
So it's a convenience store for Speedway.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Any other questions? Anyone from the lobby care to make a comment on this case? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, basically, the only one I thought was substantial was the 7 signs. And I have a bunch of respect for 7-Eleven's corporate standards, but it seemed like a lot. But after reviewing the plans and everything, it seems pretty sleek and pretty modern, and it doesn't really seem like that big of a request. So my concerns about the sign variance has been alleviated.
Anything else?
No.
Does anyone see a reason to deal with these requests separately? Or can we do them all at once?
I think we can do them all at once.
Anyone care to make a motion on the disposition of this case then as a package of all the variances?
I would support the, how do you do this properly? Granting the variances in total as submitted to this board.
Perfect. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Anderson, seconded by Mr. Crawford, that the variance request as a package be approved as submitted. Any further discussion? Mr. Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Jerry Anderson.
Yes.
Tim Emmerich, yes. Julie Broadwell,
Yes.
Jeff Crawford,
Yes.
Rod Noble.
Yes. Requests have been approved, and please see the planning department for the final permits, and wish you all the best.
Will do. Thank you very much.
Laura, you said earlier you're going to start the project or could in 2026.
Yeah, that's the plan.
When are we going to be up and running and buying Roost's chicken and biscuits?
In a perfect world, spring of 2026, we'll see how fast we get permits. And then if not, I would say probably fall.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, last case for this evening. Help me out, Ally Buckers.
I'm here to represent.
You're not
Holly
Ally.
could not make it tonight, so I'm
Okay.
representing.
On behalf of Quick Trip, has requested the following variances to allow new construction at 120 Freeway Court. To allow the construction of a 58-foot 8-inch by 124 feet 2-inch accessory structure, which is an auto fuel canopy, and a 31-foot 6-inch by 114-foot 8-inch accessory structure, which is a diesel canopy, which would both exceed the 18-foot maximum height by 7 feet 6 inches. They would be 25 feet 6 inches tall. And to allow the construction of a 79-foot by 113-foot travel center, which would exceed the 60-foot maximum front yard setback by 105 feet from the front property line along East Wooster Street and by 88 feet from the front property line along South Dunbridge Road. This is a corner lot. And would the representative please come forward while Heather, you would,
Okay, I'm going to go first, right?
did it, didn't I?
You did. Under the zoning code, Article 2, District and Zone Regulations, Section 150.13, defining structure height. Under Section A, structure height is the vertical distance between the average grade plane of the structure and the highest point of any flat roof. I gave you a copy of the visual there. So in this circumstance, the canopies are measured to the top of that roof. Under Article 3 Uses, Section 150.44 Accessory Uses, the fuel canopies we actually consider as accessory uses. The required setbacks and other regulations for accessory uses are actually under a different table of this section, which is Table 22, Accessory Use Setback Table. Under Other, it gets accessory use type, you will get your maximum height of 18 feet that I've highlighted there. Additionally, this property is a little complicated. If you've noticed by looking at the site plan, it has frontage on 4 streets. So to consider it a corner lot, it's almost like a, I don't know, a double corner lot. I don't know what else to say. So it's hard to determine, the front, the rear, and the side property lines. It really, we can be very flexible with that. In this circumstance, we did, obviously call it a corner lot, since it really is between Wooster and Dunbridge, those 2 main thoroughfares, a corner lot. This property is also zoned Interstate Commerce District, IC, under Section 150.36. As mentioned earlier, the intent of the IC is to have a mix of lodging, commercial, and retail establishments. And under this section is where the actual lot building and design standards come from. We have the IC District Standards Table, Table 13, and you will see the front yard setback there is a little different than we're used to. With the new zoning code, we actually have a 25-foot minimum here. So a 25-foot minimum front yard setback and a 60-foot maximum setback. This is new. Our old zoning code did not have a minimum and a maximum setback. So I'm just pointing that out since, again, it's something new to consider. So as mentioned before, this is an aerial view of the 2 parcels that they will build upon both of those parcels. Again, it has frontage on Wooster Street, South Dunbridge, and then Freeway Court and Expressway Drive. We did give it a Freeway Court address, as you can see, 120 Freeway Court, because that is where really the major entry points are and exit points are of the property. Using pictometry, here's a view. This would be facing north, so across there you'll see the Meyer gas station and then the hotel there to the right of the screen. Here's another view of the property. Again, you can kind of get your directional here with the Meyer gas station to the left and then the hotel again. Another view of the property from Wooster Street. And then another view of the property. I also wrote a memo on this one because we have been working with Ollie, who's not here. Wes Plyer is here on his behalf. We've been working with them for a long time, so I'll read this memo for the record just to give you some background. So this is to the members of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Subject variance request for Quick Trip 120 Freeway Court dated May 30th, 2025. The City of Bowling Green has been working with representatives since early 2023 to construct Quick Trip, a travel center, which is proposed to be located at the southeast corner of East Wooster Street and South Dunbridge Road. And I gave you a copy of the aerial below in the memo. The property is unique since it has frontage on 4 roads, East Wooster Street, South Dunbridge Road, Freeway Court, and Expressway Drive. It essentially is a corner lot with 2 front yards, but the front yards could be along any of the streets as long as there's also a side yard and a rear yard determined. In this scenario, the site plan submitted lays out the property lines along East Wooster Street and South Dunbridge Road as the front yards. The property line along Freeway Court is a side yard, and the property line along Expressway Drive is a rear yard. The property is zoned IC, which is Interstate Commerce District, which was a new zoning classification created July of 2023 when the new zoning code became effective. When the zoning code was adopted, this was the first time a regulation for a minimum maximum setback became effective. The minimum maximum setback requirement is also applicable to the Central Business District and the Gateway District in addition to the IC zoning. City staff has already approved the access to the site as required by the City of Bowling Green Access Management Policies and Guidelines by review of their traffic impact study, and most of the administrative staff have signed off on the zoning certificate approval. There are some comments that still need addressed by engineering utilities, but nothing that would require or would, impact zoning items on the site plan. Thus, the property owner is ready to move forward with requesting approval of the required variances. Here's pictures of the property here from directly at the intersection there of Wooster and Dunbridge. Another picture of the same intersection. Another picture of the property. This would be facing south. This would be a picture of the property from Wooster Street. And this would be from Freeway Court, so facing north towards Meyer there on the other side of Wooster. Here's another view of the property from Freeway Court, but it'd be facing west. Another view facing west from Freeway Court. And this is from Dunbridge. This view is also from Dunbridge. And this is from the intersection of Dunbridge and then Expressway Drive facing north. This would be another view from Expressway Drive, so East Wooster would be there at the back of the screen. Another view from Expressway Drive. And then this sketch was part of your packet. So I tried to, again, boil down the requests onto one site plan so you could see the actual variance request. So we have the diesel canopy, which would be at the back of the site, so more towards Expressway Drive for the truck traffic to enter and fill up. So the proposed height on the site plan was 25 foot 6 inches, where the maximum height is 18 feet. And I think Wes is going to tell you later that that's taller than they're going to propose here. But again, it's better to ask for really the maximum than have to reduce anything later or ask for more later on. At the front of the property there along East Wooster would be the auto fuel canopy, which also has the same proposed height of 25 foot 6 inches with a maximum height of 18 feet as an accessory structure. And then those red dash lines actually are the labels for the minimum 25-foot front yard setback from Dunbridge and East Wooster, and then the 60-foot maximum front setback line. So I just wanted you to be able to see those red lines and point those out. That's where the actual convenience store, which we call travel center, would be located within or outside of, I should say. I also have larger size plans up here that Mr. Plyer had mailed us. We just didn't make copies because they're just so large and awkward to mail, but I'm happy to pass those down so you can see those more closely. The rendering was also part of your packet that shows the 5-bay diesel canopy with the height there labeled, along with the double stack 8 canopy, which is the auto fuel canopy again along the East Wooster frontage. And then we gave you a site plan that included the landscaping, so you could see that along with the buffer fence that's required to have parking in the front along East Wooster. And then here's also a rendering that was part of your packet to see what that auto fuel canopy could look like. We did not receive any written phone calls, sorry, it's been a long night already. Phone calls or letters from any of the neighboring property owners. An advertisement was placed in the newspaper of general circulation as required. A site notice was placed at the site. The other notices required by the Administrative Code were posted in the proper time and location. A letter was mailed, first-class mail, to the tax mailing address of the owner and adjoining property owners. Therefore, all the procedure requirements for the hearing have been met.
Thank you. Please come to the podium, state your name and address for us, if you would, for the
Yes,
record.
sir. Wes Plyler. I'm from Freeland and Kaufman in Greenville, South Carolina. 209 West Stone Avenue, Greenville, 29615.
You affirm for me that you swore your oath to tell the truth?
Yes, sir. Can I pass out a couple more exhibits that will help with the maximum setup?
Yes. I was having trouble imagining this.
Thank you. I think y'all already have a list. Included that too.
Thank you.
There's two if you want to see them. I don't remember. It's up to you guys.
Thanks, Wes.
Thank you.
Okay. Again, I'm Wes Plyler. I represent Quick Trip. We're the civil firm. I've been working with Heather for several years on this property, and we are civil engineers, landscape architects. Quick Trip's very excited to potentially be in Bowling Green, and they're excited to partner with the city, foster a sense of community, generate tax dollars, create jobs, and improve the traffic signal at the intersection. Do you want me to, I have the variance criteria I'd like to go through. Do you want me to go through just one at a time? Start with,
Go ahead and do them all.
okay. We can start with the maximum setback. Whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return or whether there can be any beneficial use of the property without the variance. Possibly, but safety is a top priority, which is achieved by thoughtful site design. This is done by separating the auto customers and the truck traffic. Moving the building closer to the intersection would place them all in one large parking area. The store, as it currently sits, creates an auto customer and pedestrian component and then a separate truck component in the back. You can reference the overall site plan, that one that we've seen on screen. Number two, whether the variance is substantial. It is significant from the written code, which is updated, but not what is currently built along Wooster. Number three, whether the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered or whether adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. If you'd reference that sheet I just gave you, it would not. The adjacent hotel has a 169-foot setback from East Wooster. The fuel station across from Wooster is 165 from the right-of-way. The current location for the Quick Trip is around 165 from the right-of-way, so very similar to the adjacent uses. For the Dunbridge frontage, QT is 148 from the right-of-way, and the fuel station exceeds that with 209 between the building and the assumed right-of-way. The building placement further from the right-of-way allows for wider landscape buffers along the frontages. We have met and exceeded the landscape requirements, and the plan proposes street trees, screening shrubs, bike path, pedestrian sidewalks, bike racks, outdoor dining tables, and ornamental fencing with stone columns. The landscape plan has been approved by Adrian Loyan-Kirian, hope I said that right. And again, I provided y'all a landscape plan. Number four, whether the variance would adversely affect the delivery of government services, no. Number 5, whether the property owner purchased the property with knowledge of the zoning restriction. Yes, the property was purchased with full general knowledge of the zoning classification and permitted commercial uses under the Bowling Green zoning code. However, technical standards such as specific maximum setback limitation are frequently subjected to interpretation based on site-specific conditions, traffic design, and operational constraints. Number 6, whether the property owner's predicament feasibly can be obviated through some method other than a variance. If QT were to meet the maximum setback, the rear of the building would face the intersection. Additionally, pushing the building to the street would create dead-end parking, which we always try to avoid. Number 7, whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granted variance. It's very challenging for this use or to meet the intent, as it creates unusable space between the setback line and the right-of-way and creates an unsafe environment for pedestrians and vehicular traffic. However, substantial justice would be done based off precedent of existing commercial businesses along Wooster. I'll proceed on to the canopy height. And like Heather said, on the agenda, I know it's 25.5 feet max. That's Quick Trip's general standard on how high they will go. Generally, for the auto canopy, it's a 17-foot height clearance. And for the diesel, it's 16 feet. So,
That's the bottom of the canopy?
yes, sir. And I know, y'all did not get this copy? Okay. I apologize, I only brought one of these. But if you want to pass this along,
Thank you.
it explains that, and the parking lot's not flat. So we'll start with the auto canopy, which is 17-foot clearance. You put that at the highest mark, and as it slopes down, you have a new finish grade, and that same height, since the canopy top is flat,
Sure.
it's going to be a little taller.
Sure.
So that explains that a little bit and shows you the maximum heights. At the top of the canopy, you have a 3.5-foot wide canopy top, which I'll go on and explain. Number 1, whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return or whether there can be any beneficial use of the property without the variance. Possibly, but the added height is a safety measure to prevent potential damage as well as increasing visibility to the store for customers. The IBC requires 13.5 feet of clearance. QT has built many stores, and through their experience and research, their standard clearance is 17 for auto and 16 for diesel canopies. The 3.5 wide canopy top is an aesthetically pleasing brushed aluminum with illuminated red band. Whether the variance is substantial, it would not create a noticeable or significant difference. Whether the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered. It would not. The QT fuel canopies are designed to complement the building materials and design. The same quality that the building conveys is reflected in the canopy. Number 4, whether the variance would adversely affect the delivery of government services. No. Number 5, whether the property owner purchased the property with knowledge. Yes, the property owner was generally aware of the zoning regulations at the time of purchase. However, the request to increase the canopy height stems not from a lack of understanding, but from a commitment to delivering a modern, consistent, and visually cohesive development that aligns with Quick Trip's national design standards. The proposed canopy heights reflect the company's uniform architectural style, which emphasizes clean lines, brushed aluminum finishes, and an integrated illuminated red band that enhances visibility and brand identity without appearing bulky or intrusive. Allowing the canopy height to align with these standards ensures that the site maintains the high-quality, modern aesthetic seen across Quick Trip locations nationwide. Number 6, whether the property's predicament feasibly can be obviated through some method other than a variance, simply not without compromising their standards. And number 7, whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done. We believe the intent is still being met since the request is only 4.24 feet for the auto canopy and 3.33 for the diesel canopy.
Is that to the top?
Yes, sir. And you'll have I believe you saw the rendering. This is a very clean look.
Any questions from the board?
I do. Oh,
Please.
so tell me how traffic would be coming in here. The people would come along, the semi trucks would come along Dunbridge and enter there? Is that what you're saying, to keep them separate from the?
Yes, the traffic would enter from Expressway Drive and go through the canopy and exit Freeway Court. They would not, the trucks would not go through the front.
Okay, you said Expressway, they'd come in?
They would come in Expressway Drive.
and exit.
That's the diesel entrance, the truck entrance.
And then when you talked about pedestrians, are you talking about pedestrians that are just in this area and walking around? Or are you talking about
Yes.
pedestrians coming and walking there? Because we don't get many pedestrians out there.
Well, we are proposing the multi-use path along Dunbridge and an additional sidewalk along Wooster Street. I know there's a hotel next door. I know there's a maybe passive recreation across the street, I guess catty corner from the Meyer. So hopefully this will promote walking and pedestrians in the area.
So at least like even just from the hotel coming over, you're saying if people at the hotel wanted to walk over? or
Sure, and
something?
there's, again, I failed to mention the sidewalks along Freeway Court and Expressway Drive. There's sidewalks on all four
Sidewalks
frontages,
there, okay. Thank you.
and with the wider one along Dunbridge.
In your application, you mentioned the maximum setback due to an easement restricting the gas canopy from being behind the, I'm missing the easement on the site plan, I guess.
The easement is right behind the store. It's
Oh,
a
now I see
30-foot
it as I look.
utility.
Right there it is. I see it. Along Expressway Drive? Right here?
There's a 30-foot utility easement right there.
Oh, okay, yeah. How'd I miss that?
Right down the side.
I see.
So it works, again, if you place the building where it is. It's very similar to adjacent uses, and it works very well with separating the diesel and the auto component, and it works well with that, working around the utility easement.
That clears up a lot.
We don't want to
Yeah,
have
nice
to
site plan.
relocate that.
And again, the landscaping requirements are met. I appreciate that. And no complaints, no letters of support or complaint?
Correct.
Okay, I would not have been surprised to hear from the hotel, and if that would have been the case, I'd have had a whole series of questions for you, so
Okay,
don't have to worry about that.
that's great. Good news.
I'm kind of curious, it's a similar request to what we just reviewed with these canopies. Why there's not a more firepower to the lighting request on this one?
Well, I was going to ask both about lighting
And
and signage,
Yes, sir.
because I think we, as indicated earlier, we're dealing with pre-existing signs across the expressway. I
Right.
can't believe you guys are going to be tucked on the east side of the interstate and not be putting something up in the air.
Our plans, first for the signage, there's a monument sign that is in front of the auto canopy. There are no plans for a large pylon. I know there'll be some canopy. Typically, they'll do a couple canopy signs, little button signs that are on that 3.5 foot. There's a couple building signs, and they are going to address those separately. And
Okay.
I don't know if there'll be an additional variance for that or not. I know that's a separate permit. And for your other question,
Light level?
for the lighting, we have submitted a photometric plan, and we have met all the comments. So
Yeah,
we'll-
I mean, the electric superintendent did approve it. And they're kind of in the same situation as the last request. We've been working with them prior to the new zoning code going into effect. So I cannot remember if you guys applied before the new zoning permit or not, because like I said, this has been going on for a long time. The traffic review probably took the longest, and then there was, some changes to the site plan, and so it's just been a long process. But I do know our electric superintendent approved the lighting.
And Wes, did I hear you say, is your canopy itself going to be lit around the?
that red illuminated band.
Okay.
So we may be getting sign variance requests.
Possibly, but nothing extreme. I mean, again, I think there could be some building facade sign, like small little signs. And usually they'll do a canopy sign, and that's to be determined.
So one thing that struck me was when you said it's comparable to other fuel centers along Worcester, or something close to that maybe that you said.
That was in reference to just the building location in relation to the right-of-way for the maximum setback, which is part of the new zoning code. We just felt like putting the building up on the road, although it would meet the new code, just doesn't really fit with the existing uses along East Worcester and just not very safe for, I think it's a better looking situation with the store as it is and not the back of the building facing that intersection.
Yeah.
And again, having the auto in the front, the diesel component in the back. So you don't have one large parking area.
Any other questions from the board?
Just real quickly, the store for all intents and purposes is carry out,
Yes. Well, I mean,
travel mart, yeah, okay.
they do provide the 2 dining tables, outdoor dining tables, and
Okay. And we don't want to call this a truck stop, but Bowling Green's not, we don't get diesels at that exit. We will now, probably in large numbers, if business is good.
Right.
That's
Yes,
the
sir.
plan, right? Okay. Today, we're just dealing with canopies, the heights of canopies, and the variation request on the setbacks.
Correct.
Okay.
Anyone from the lobby have any comments? Any final thoughts from the board?
Yeah, I mean, I think strict application of this, the parcel is kind of, has a lot of frontages. Strict application of the setback requirements would hinder the economic output of the parcel. So to me, that, based on that particular parcel, it would create a hardship, so.
I agree. I mean, like I said, in the absence of, my concern would have been with the hotel, but they're obviously not concerned. And I apologize for missing that easement, but once I see that now, the site plan makes total sense. And that's, you did a nice job with how you configured things on there. It's
thank you.
good. Okay, anyone care to make a motion for the disposition of this case?
A motion to approve?
For a second?
I'll second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded that the variance requests be approved as submitted. Any further discussion? Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Tim Emmerich, yes. Jeff Crawford,
Yes.
Jerry Anderson,
Yes.
Rod Noble,
Yes.
Julie Broadwell.
Yes.
Your requests have been approved. Please continue to work on with Heather and.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And we have to
Thank you,
sign
Wes.
a few things before you leave.
Anyone have anything to say from the lobby? All right, anything else from any of the board members? Have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second that.